everybody. Welcome to the Rundown, A2DRadio.com, all of our A2D radio platforms. I'm Zach Burr, Ralph Delavecchio, Tom Arnone with us again. I'm live from my car, Ralph from his bedroom, Tom's in the studio.
And
Ralph,
professional around here.
Yeah, somebody's got to be professional. Ralphie could have at least made the bed and helped this whole look a little bit.
It's mateable.
But I guess it's mateable. It's amateur hour over there in the Delavecchio house.
Oh man!
But like usual, we're gonna have a ton of fun today on the rundown. Talking the MLB plan that came out last night. Obviously still speculatory. Nothing's been confirmed, but at least exciting to have some type of idea to talk about as far as when could the season possibly get underway and details involved with that. Not just a date, but some actual details that could go with it and could give us some hope on how all this might be carried out. We want to talk the MLB plan. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What are your thoughts on it? We want your opinions on it. We're going to give our opinions on it. And with Don Shula dying yesterday, we figured, he's one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history. There's some great stories even out there, about him, even greater personality in some ways. So, we thought what a great conversation to have with just our favorite head coaches of all time, any sport, throughout our whole life as a sports fan. Fun conversation to have, and we're gonna have a lot of fun as usual, guys. Whole question: you like the MLB plan, the new MLB plan? Agree or disagree? Tommy, you're a baseball nut. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, listen, hope of a comeback. I'm all for. So, you saw last night what happened in Korea. Some baseball and. There's some hope with it. And then, we see the rumors about a July 1st start. I think that's right where everybody was around. That stuff started to get pushed back a little bit more. So I love the idea. They're going to have to get started sooner or later if they want to have a season. So, a July 1st target date, spring training coming, the middle of June-ish, right? A little 2 weeks.
June 10th or something like that. I thought I saw.
A little 2 week or spring training. So I'm in for it. Now the question becomes, which way do you go about it? Do you, on one end, play games like they talked about yesterday at home ballparks and the players just travel like they would regardless? Or do you condense it and say, hey, we're all doing it in either Arizona or we're doing it in Florida? So that's the only debate up, it seems like, is where they're going to do it. But in terms of starting it, it looks like they're ready to rock and roll and they have a plan in place. And I don't think it would keep coming out the way it has if there wasn't a big-time plan in place either, too. So, I don't want to say it's just coach speak when they're talking about a July 1st start date. Not at all. I think it's legitimate. And, listen, they can only lose so much money. We talk about big business. So if they can find a way to test it right and do all that right, I think their players are all for it, too. Now, I think player-wise, they would rather be able to travel and do it that way from their homes and be able to be around their families. You know what I mean? I think that's important to players. But, when you talk about the CBA, can the players maybe win that battle to be able to be home and then travel and then go back home? Or, does it get condensed like we talked about and is it just done in, two spots, Florida and Arizona? We'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of the new plans, I agree. Ralphie?
Yeah, I totally agree with you as well, Tommy. I just like the way that they went about it, giving us, it's not like, there's hope that it could be there, that you, like what Zach was saying with the details, starting July 1st, you had the 2 week period of the strength training in mid to late June. But as we sat here, a couple months ago, we were thinking, maybe, you can bring it back in July, cut the season in half, and then get the playoffs rolling before end of September and then October. And I love it. And I just think the way they should do it, my opinion on it, is the first plan that they had to where, or the first rumor there was for it, that you did it by spring training, like you were saying, Tommy. You had the teams that were in the Grapefruit League, and then you had the teams in the Cactus League play in those states, and you just keep those teams down there, let them play in the spring training ballparks, and then you just go from there. I don't think teams are going to be playing. If baseball is coming back, I don't see the Phillies playing in Citizens Bank Park anytime soon. I think the first plan that they had was the right plan, and that's keeping the teams down and where their spring training facilities are, and let the division and the league play like that.
Yeah, I'm more leaning with you, Ralphie. I'm going to be happy one way or another. It's not like I'm going to be upset if they go one way or another with the plan. We're going to get to watch baseball regardless, and have some sort of a season and a postseason and a World Series and all that. So for me, that's the most important thing. But the plan that I heard last night, I don't think I'm fully on board with. The idea of everybody going to all of their, if you're playing a home game on your schedule at that point, you're going to be at your home ballpark. If you're supposed to be at so-and-so's ballpark on your schedule that day, that's where you're going to play. Obviously, that would be ideal, but I think we're talking about this is going to be without fans anyway. There's not going to be fans in any of these ballparks to begin with.
Yeah.
At least to start. So if you're going to go with what is probably the easiest plan to carry out, and really do this, and get the best season you could possibly get, I think all the way around with the players and everything, having it in Arizona and Florida might be the best. This is where these guys live. They're down here, this is where their properties are at. They live down here in these states, in the off season to begin with. So you're talking about not separating them from their families, keeping them around their families where they've been throughout this whole thing to begin with. I think ideally, it would be best to try to do it in those two states. I just have a feeling that Major League Baseball would like to get it back to normal, where they want it, on their end of it. I have a feeling they would like to see it go and return to all of the normal ballparks. I just have this feeling that's what they want.
That's a legitimate reason on why they want to return to their ballparks. Because listen, if they're down in Florida and things do get back to normal, they have to look at it both ways. If things do get back to normal and they're down in Florida, well, there goes the revenue of fans. Essentially, to the level they would make it if they were at their own ballparks. So if they play it from their own ballparks and still essentially quarantine their players in a way, it's the same thing, except they're just with their families. You know what I mean? So they do it that way. Right now, it leaves the opportunity in the window available to, if things do get back to normal, hey, we can now play and sell out Citizens Bank Park, or 30,000 people, or whoever decides to come out at that point. But at least it allows that window to stay open for Major League Baseball. You know what I mean? Because what's the difference? I mean, if you're playing in Florida or playing here, they're getting on team planes. So it's not like they're not travel commercial. True. So, I mean, to me, that's why this is starting to make more sense this way, is because, listen, these guys, quit the bargaining agreement. They're not going to win with keeping these guys down in Florida. They're not. There's too many guys that got family elsewhere that for whatever reason can't bring their families down there. So the best way Major League Baseball can look at it is two ways. One, what's the difference? You're around your family, you travel, you're not traveling commercial, all right, and then bang, you travel, you travel, and we do the same thing we would do in Florida, traveling in a way. So
but the thing is,
we're just getting on a plane. That's it. And now guys can be around their families, etc. And then you can still do your testing any way you want to do it. But it leaves the opportunity available to be able to say, hey, if things do get back to normal, we can now bring people back to our own parks.
I would think ideally, like the fans returning, hey, that's something you're looking at. Hey, if we get to the playoffs, and we get to October or something like that, hopefully things can be back to normal enough where now we can actually make the revenue off of bringing people back into the ballparks too. I don't know if having fans in the ballparks even a part of this conversation right now for them, as much as what you're talking about, Tommy, with the family side of it. Now, here's the tough part with that, because depending on who you are, a lot of these guys, obviously them and their families live down in the states where they're playing spring training. If you got a lot of Phillies guys that are living down in the Clearwater and all that, but not everybody. You do have people that will have their families up at wherever their property is, and the city in South Jersey, a little bit of an issue trying to accommodate everybody if you're trying to make the players and everybody happy from the family side of it. And I think we've heard a couple players come out and at least talk about that side of it, wives being pregnant and things like that, as far as their concerns about what would happen if they were in one area of the country playing and their wife could be there with them. And we're flying their families in with them, and they're feeling like they're going to be accommodated in that way. Yeah, I don't see any problem with it I think it'll work either way. I'm just trying to think like logically, ideally, like which one for me seems to work like the most, just from a common sense perspective. And for me right now, I still like the spring training ideas better. But if you get to the point where you're introducing fans, obviously your spring training stadiums aren't holding as many fans as your home ballpark.
Yeah, I don't even think
45,000 people in the Spectrum Field in Clearwater.
Yeah, I might not even be as much as that. I mean, you think like most guys are going to live around, have places around where their home ball.
They've got two properties. Everybody's got a place up in. Yeah,
to me,
have a property up there too.
It makes more sense just like try to keep it as normal as possible and let guys try to be in comfort zones a little bit and make it not feel like a spring training and play in big league ballparks. And even though you're not getting the atmosphere from the fans, you're getting the atmosphere still from the park itself. You know what I mean? So I don't know. To me, you want to keep some of that the same if you can. You know what I mean? And there's to me, there's no difference because a lot of guys would just have their families come to Florida. So what's the difference there? So all the difference is
well, yeah, that was the other thing I was going to talk about. When I've heard some of these players complain about that.
And that's the thing too. If you do move it to Florida and Arizona out there, you're not flying on planes and stuff. You're taking that bus to different parks for the players.
What's the difference of a plane and a bus?
Well, there's not, but I think their idea more would be the quarantine side of it, wouldn't it? Like, do they think that they have a better chance of keeping all the players?
Oh, you're breaking up, but no.
Like the animals on the biggest strip.
You're breaking up on us, but no, there's no different quarantine from playing at your own home ballpark or playing down in spring training. You know what I mean? You're not locking guys in a prison. So there's no difference.
Well, yeah. So you're going to let people live their daily, like their everyday life at that point. You're going to let these guys are going to do their normal thing just like they would any normal season of baseball. You're not worried about where their guys are staying or keeping them quarantined away from. Like, let's keep them all around each other, but not like keep them away from the public in a way. You're just going to let them do the normal thing. You go out and live your life when you're not playing baseball. Go to dinner wherever you want.
You're going to tell them to go off of what their local officials are telling them to do. I mean, I don't even want to get into that part of it, but that is a complicated part of it, though. Yeah, but they're not going to. It's not a prison, is my point. So if you play at home ballparks or you play down in spring training, a plane and a bus is no different. It's probably safer. Not safer. It's probably in terms of spreading it better, less than a plane because the air is filtered out in terms of that side of it. But in terms of flying or getting on a bus, there's no difference.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I'm not worried about the transportation side of it. I think
hotel accommodations, it's all the same. You're staying the same team. Right. You're staying in forever. They're taken care of. You're always quarantined on a level anyway in them hotels. If for some reason they are open back up, so I mean, all that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? All that doesn't matter. So all that makes it's just simpler to go. Hey, we're just going to play in our usual ballparks and let's go to work. We don't need.
So if that were to happen, are you keeping the same divisions or are you dumbing them down?
Well, the other side of that is now you have the same divisions. That's the other side of it is you get to have the same divisions. If you play them in Arizona and Florida, you're not going to have the same divisions. They're kind of shaking that up. So maybe that's another side of it too. Is they'd much rather prefer to keep the divisions the same, and therefore if you can get them playing in their own ballparks.
Listen, we don't want baseball back, but listen, you don't got to just throw it the hell together. We don't got to do a grapefruit and a cactus league. I mean, grow up. I mean, come on. We can get. What's the difference? You're in Florida, or you're.
Well, there's your difference. There's your difference. You have your divisions back together now. You've got everything aligned the same way it usually is.
Location. There's no difference.
No, I agree with that. I agree with you there. My big thing to the players that would be complaining about, like I've heard, the guy like Chris Bryant talk about his wife being pregnant is, okay, well, that's no different than it would be in the regular season. What if your wife's living is at your house in Arizona and you're on the road in fucking Philly and your wife goes into labor? You're still going to have to fly back to Arizona. There's no difference there as far as the accommodations that would have to be made there to get him to wherever his wife is or whatever. If that's what these guys are worried about, well, then fuck, why don't even play baseball this year? Why don't you just stay home while everybody else plays baseball?
No, I mean, that's all taken care of. That's not a big deal. But in terms of taking care of that situation, but there's no, like, to me, there's no difference. You just play at your home ballparks. You travel's the same. You're quarantined when you're traveling. You know what I mean? So
I don't disagree with any of that.
you handle it like that. There's no difference, from getting on a bus, and I'm going to continue to say that. So it's just about bringing some normalcy back to it in some fashion, having the same divisions, obviously a condensed season, but the same divisions. And I think, I speak for myself. I want the same divisions.
Yeah, that for me was going to be the hardest part.
Building myself to beat the New York Yankees. You got to figure that in. You go in the all season to try to win your division to start. So you factor in the things you do to try to win your division. So, I factor in the things the Phillies did in a way to try to win the NL East. I don't want to be in the Cactus League or the Grapefruit. I want to be in the NL East.
That would have been the hardest part for me to accept.
I understand with the divisions because like you said, Tom, you build your team on who's in your division, right? So you had the Braves, the Nationals, the Mets, and obviously the Marlins. But if you would have done it the way that they were the first plan, you would have had, I think the one report, you did it with you had the Yankees in there and the Blue Jays and the Tigers and the Pirates, and your division's a little out of whack. So
all those spring training stadiums are right there.
Yeah, and I totally agree that keeping the same divisions would benefit from a lot of teams as well.
Well, if you're baseball here, that's where I think this is going to come down to. It's not really going to be a fan idea or a player idea or anything. I think baseball is going to do what they want here, and I've heard plenty of players speak out on it and what they're what they ideally would like to see happen for the season. But you mentioned the CBA and all that, Tommy. The players have enough leverage in this situation. The players aren't going to mean shit. I honestly believe Manfred's going to do what he wants here.
Yeah, and if I am the MLB, I'll take this time. I'll watch what the KOB's doing and just take little things from them if I'm going to bring back baseball in the United States.
I think they're completely different situations. I don't even know if you could look at what they're doing and try to base your plan off of theirs.
Sure you can. Sure you can.
But they're so much further ahead of where we're at as far as like a recovery process and stuff like that. Like they weren't even hardly affected by this. Like they weren't hit anywhere near as hard as places like China and us.
Well, I'm not into that type of stuff, so I'm not going to get into that. But if you think about it, the way that's going right now, possibly late June, early July, we could be at the same point of where the KOB's at right now, right? So that's what I'm just saying. If you're the MLB, take a little thing. So take some stuff that the KOB's doing right now to when you get to the point that you're at the same point of what you and the KOB are at, that you can play baseball and have your players be safe and do stuff. Then you can implement that into your own franchise, into your own organization and stuff like that. That's all I'm saying.
The things like taking their temperature as they go onto the field and things like that might be something that, like, we're doing that at Wawa right now. When I go to Wawa every day for my work shift, we walk in, they actually take our temperature. They got this thing that they scan our forehead with to find out our temperature. And if you've got a temperature, you go home. So like that's stuff that's going on at normal place of businesses. I'd absolutely see them doing something like that. The players side of it is one thing. I was more talking about the fan side of it with the KOB. I mean, they were playing in a full ballpark last night, weren't they? There's fans everywhere. Was it?
Yeah, it was empty.
Okay, well, so that changes a little bit then for me. So
for cardboard cutouts?
Bro, I wasn't watching. I fell asleep at 11 o'clock. I worked till 10 o'clock at night, so I had to fall asleep. I wanted to stay up and watch. I wish I could watch tonight. I'm hoping to stay up and watch, but unfortunately last night I couldn't watch. So I did not hear that. I was under the impression they were playing with full stadiums and stuff like that.
Aaron Altera was playing last night in center field.
Cardboard cutouts boot him. Cardboard cutouts boot him. Spidey says, did they already say they're shortening the season? What's the number of games? Well, it's just obvious, Mike. Come on, baby. Yeah.
You can't. You're gonna play a full 162. You're gonna play double headers every day.
That's fine.
How many games do you think they should? You think they just go a flat 100?
I think they could. I think they could play a flat 100. I think they could find a way to make it a 100-game regular season from July 1st. That's actually right around what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're thinking there's 100 games usually in a normal regular season from that point. The All-Star break's about a week or two after that. It's 100 games seems like the perfect number in my opinion. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's the perfect number.
100 games, you're good to go. And obviously, if they are going to bring it back, you're going to have to play in those 100 games. Obviously, you're going to play more of your division teams than out of division teams. If I'm the MLB.
So let's talk about it for a second. A condensed season, what are your hopes on then winning this division?
I think it's a lot more open. Compared to two sides of '94. When you had one side of the regular season and then the other side of the regular season. The Expos might have been the best team in baseball that year. They had one of the best records in the one half, and then it all got fucked up going into the second half, and you had the playoffs messing it all up. Just kind of it being a little bit of a crazy situation. But it brings, I think, a lot more teams into into this picture. You could play, you could play 100 games. Like last year, we might have been a playoff team 100 games into the season. You know what I mean? So you can overachieve for 100 games in a baseball season to a point where you're 100 games in and you maybe overachieved a little bit more than you probably should have. But it's always when you get to the August and the Septembers that it seems like those teams that aren't quite good enough, when they've overachieved those first 100 games or so, then they seem to fall off in that final month or two, right? And that's what you seem to experience with those guys, with those teams. So if you're just talking about 100 games, anybody could get hot and play hot enough baseball for a 2-month stretch.
I agree with that, Zach. I think if you do shorten the seasons, I think every single division in the MLB is wide open for an unexpected team to win a division and make the playoffs. I think shortening the season gives every team a shot. As like you said, when you get into the later months of baseball in the July and August, the teams that were hot at the beginning start to fizzle out a little bit, and then they really show you what team they were. And they overachieved a little bit. But I totally agree. I think if you shorten the season, the divisions become wide open for anybody to win it.
No, it does. And it favors teams like ourselves that we're hot early on and simmer down. And it really does open up the playing field. Big time opens up the playing.
Yep.
And
what about something like the trade deadline? You think they'll have something like that? You think we'll still be seeing something like that go on? It's going to obviously be an interesting point in the season when they do it? Or do you think they're just like, fuck it, there's no trade deadline or something like that? Because they've talked about there being no All-Star break. Obviously, we're not going to have an All-Star game or something, or no All-Star break or whatever. They were, I think, talking about.
They're going to cut that out, obviously.
Yeah,
moving the World Series or whatever the fuck they were talking about with that stupid idea.
Yeah. I don't know about the trade deadline. I don't know how they would do that because usually the trade deadline's around, July 31st is when it happens. That's going to be really tricky. Really tricky.
Just one and have one.
Yeah.
You probably just don't have one. You just allow trades at any point.
You can trade whatever. Just trade until the end of this. Yeah.
At the end of the regular season.
Or you
where you can't in general. Yeah.
You can't, period.
Yeah.
So you just can't make trades, period. That'll make things interesting with injuries and shit like that.
Yeah. It's just options, But I mean, I'm also good with it being you can make trades all year too. So,
what does Prism say? Prism says 100 games keeps the pitchers fresh through the playoffs. In theory, possibly gets rid of some pitchers being on inning limits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you're not concerned about your guys. You're like, hell, go deep in the games. I want you to go 7-8 innings now every single start.
Yeah.
I'm not. There's nothing. I don't need to save any bullets for September now. You're good. You unleash those guys and you get as much out of them as you possibly can.
Yeah, you do go. Yeah, obviously, for Nola and stuff like that, you can actually go more than 6 innings.
Yeah, you don't have to pitch him 4 2/3 in the first game of the year now. You don't have to save his arm for September.
Bryce loves getting guys going 7 and deep in the game. So I mean, the piggyback off of that, I think it's shortened season's good for what he likes to do. I mean, he wants his starters to go deeper into games.
Yeah, I'm all for that. All for that. Let's do it.
You look at our top 3 pitchers who would be our 3 starters to start the year. You're going to have Nola, Wheeler, and Arrieta. That scares me, but hopefully, for over 100-game season, you guys with durability issues and things like that, over 100 games, maybe you feel a little bit better about those types of things, right? As opposed to the full 162.
No, absolutely do. You know what I mean? You absolutely do a little bit.
And obviously with the whole Jake Arrieta stuff with his elbow, all this time off, especially for guys that are injured, is actually playing good parts because now, if you looked at the Andrew McCutchen situation, right?
McCutchen's another great name. Wasn't going to be ready for opening day.
Wasn't going to be ready for opening day, Now, if this starts in July, you get him back. I think he's ready. Same thing
And
with the Sixers.
he was a huge loss last year.
Yeah.
Even for
Oh,
back.
absolutely, Zach. When McCutchen went down last year, you just saw the Phillies just fold, man. They didn't have that pop at the top of the lineup anymore.
No, I mean it was a big loss for him. Not only in the lineup, but locker room, etc.
Yeah.
Attitude. You know, you've got a guy that's been around this league for a while. Has won an MVP award. You know, he knows what it takes to be successful in this league. And when you lost all of that, I think the attitude and everything about what he brought you at the top of that lineup just killed a lot of this team going forward.
Yeah, you lost him. You didn't. It sucked. It sucked.
Like
It was
Parker
a big.
says, or no trades after like 2 weeks in. You know,
2 weeks in. I mean, hell, you don't even know what the fuck you need to improve on 2 weeks into the season.
maybe halfway in somewhere. Like
Yeah.
100. They shut it down.
Or just push it back to like August 31st or something. Like move it
September
a month
1st.
back. Yeah, September 1st. Yeah, you do it like that. But
Person-
yet again, 2 months in, do you still? If you're 2 months into an MLB season, do you think the teams will still realize? Okay, we need pitching. We need a leadoff guy. We need a big bat off the bench. Like 2 months in, I mean, you really don't see any more. Even when the regular season was starting in April, you really didn't see that many trades happen 2 months into the season because teams are still trying to figure out what they need. And obviously, you get closer to July 31st and into the All-Star break, and then that's when you really, really see the trades happening because then you had the playoff teams that we need a big bat off the bench, we need another reliever, and then the trades happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think you start. You just got to figure that out sooner than later.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it more interesting. Now you're like, hell, we 2 months in, maybe we don't know what this team needs to get better, but we got the playoffs that's a month away. Fuck it. We got to take a shot here if we think this is what we need to get better.
Yeah.
You don't have the time to sit there and look at this situation and try to, look at all these different things about it and determine what you think you need by the time October 1st gets here. You're a month out from October 1st. You better make a move now. You don't got time to wait and think.
Yep. You have no time to wait. Zero time to wait. So, but guess what? I mean, I think we talk about the Phillies. I mean, I was excited about this lineup.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say I was excited about the staff and all that, but I was excited about this lineup. I felt this lineup could hit. So, I mean, it was something that got my juices flowing when we were about to start. Can this lineup put up crooked numbers? Can this lineup hit consistently?
And we wanted to know when guys like Alec Baum were going to come up into this lineup. Is that going to happen now at all? Is that something we see at all, or do we see it right away now? Or like, how the hell is all that going to work with the service time and shit?
Well, you just wonder. You just wonder if they extend rosters. I wonder how they do that. But that, again, that's the least of the worries. I'm more talking about how this team can be on the baseball field.
But look how fired up we are talking about baseball. Look how excited it's getting us, right? Like we're so excited for this.
You finally see live sports last night with the KOB, and you get jacked up. It feels like forever. It was amazing last night. I mean, obviously with the KOB going on, it was cool just to see how much. And ESPN was putting the stats, with guys that are actually in the league, and then guys that come over to play in the KOB from the United States and other countries, and you just saw the different, the batting averages and all the splits, and it's crazy to see how different it is from American baseball to the KOB.
Oh,
they seem to actually play small ball over there, Tommy.
Yeah.
I know you're a fan of shit like that.
There's not a lot of power, and that's what Carl Ravitch was saying too on the broadcast last night, is that it's more of a contact. It's more contact than power in that league, and you saw it last night as well.
Oh yeah, they play a little different. Play a little small ball, square stuff up.
Yeah,
got guys hitting 500-foot home runs and shit like that.
Yeah,
no, that's why when some of the American players come over there and hit bombs, they're legends over there.
Yeah.
Prism agrees with your point with the 40-man roster, Tom. Are you saying he thinks it's not going to be? It's never going to have been more important than it is this year now. That's an interesting thing. Again, that's usually like a September 1st thing. When do you do that? When do 40-man rosters become a thing? Do you just let it be September 1st again, or you rolling out this idea? Could you go 40-man rosters the whole year? Are you cool with starting July 1st with 40-man rosters and going a 100-game season with 40-man rosters?
Depends how fast they want to play. It depends if they want to do like avoid off days.
Okay, I can see. Yeah,
back to it.
That's a really good point.
Do the minor leagues come back as well, or is it just strictly the MLB? Like, do AAA, AA, does that come back? Does single A come back? Like, you gotta factor that in as well too.
No,
minor leagues, they end so much earlier anyway. I mean, if minor league has to start July 1st, I mean, their season usually ends at the September 2nd or whatever it is. Very first week of September.
Yeah, but like if you're gonna bring back the pros, are you bringing back the minor leagues too, Zach?
Well, I think they would have to. Obviously, that's all got to be a part of this. I mean, I don't want to say they have to because I guess they don't have to do shit, necessarily unless they want to. But yeah, I mean, you would have to figure something out for those guys. You're not just going to have a bunch of minor leaguers that aren't playing baseball all year long. So yeah, that's of course a big part of this.
Yeah, and that's it goes for another thing with the service time things, right? So if you don't bring back, just say they don't bring back minor league baseball and they only keep the pros. I'm all for keeping the 40-man roster open, right? To have as many as you had the 40 guys on your team, and you pick and choose from there. If there's injuries happen, you're good to go because the 40-man roster. I think if you don't keep the minor league open, it's tough to say because of just how many guys are just in your system to begin with, right? But with the service time thing, how does that affect for a guy that's a guy in AAA like Alec Baum, like we were saying? Like
that would be a CBA issue.
Like the MLB or the CBA, yeah. Does the CBA not count that this year for him?
Yeah,
you got to put
that'd be something that they're going to fight. Yeah, that's interesting because they've obviously negotiated in this new CBA and all that. That would be something that would definitely, I think, be a talking point with those guys. The 40-man roster idea is interesting if you're talking about, those guys that we talk about maybe on the fringe of getting called up from a level like AA or AAA and becoming big league ball players. Yeah. I think I really like the idea of if I can have a 40-man roster and that means Alec Baum starts the year on this team, then fuck it, give me a 40-man roster because I want him up here. If he's not going to make a 25-man roster, I'd rather it be a 40-man roster if that means I get to see a guy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it all depends on the trade deadline, like Prism saying, whatever decision they make there. And then, obviously, if they go days off or they do any of them types of things, they're going to factor in as well.
So Tommy, you said you would be a fan of you said you are a fan of the plan that was talked about last night. You agree with the poll question. You like the new MLB plan that was talked about last night. Ralphie, me and you kind of disagreed with that initially, but I think we've kind of all came to the conclusion we don't really care exactly how it happens as long as we're getting baseball back at some point this year. We're going to be thrilled.
We all need sports. We need something to watch.
I don't care how they do the fans. I don't care.
Yeah, none of that matters to me. And I think TV revenue will be able to make up for the fact that they're not going to put fans in the ballparks at least right away. Now playoff time, maybe you're going to love that fan revenue money. When ticket prices go way up and now you're charging a lot more money per ticket. For seats come World Series time and things like that. But you look around baseball. I mean, there's certain fucking teams in baseball that 10,000 people show up to a game on a normal day to begin with. So what the hell's the difference? You're playing in front of nobody usually. You got 8,000 people in your 40,000 seat stadium. What's the difference between having 8,000 and nobody? It's really nothing. So, it's not like, we're all the revenue. Well, some of those teams aren't making much on ticket revenue to begin with. I think most of the money's coming in from the TV and the advertising and the shit like that. So I'm not concerned about the fan side of it. I think that'll take care of itself. Once the country gets back to a certain point.
Well, and you also see what you were talking about the tickets too. You also see, from NBA, NHL, and obviously, I don't know if the MLB has started this, but they're starting the whole refund process on some of the tickets for the people that bought it. So,
like the season tickets, getting refunds for your season tickets.
Yeah. So I wonder what's going to happen with the MLB if they do come back. People with the season tickets, are they going to get refunded and stuff like that? But we'll see.
I think you would have to. I would think you'd have to. There would. I mean, I have never been a season ticket holder, Tommy. I don't know if you. I mean, I know you probably know. you definitely know people that friends and stuff like that have been season ticket holders that maybe would know something better than us here. But I would think they'd have to get their money back, wouldn't they?
They have to.
Yeah.
I think that the contract and all that, there'd be all types of lawsuits and stuff like that. I think would come into it if you didn't find a way to pay those people their money back. So I would just think there's no choice on the part of the organizations.
No, there's no choice. They have to pay the money back. Palatero, what's up, fellas? What's up, Palatero?
What up, brother?
Thanks for tuning in, man. Appreciate it. What are your thoughts on the new MLB plan? And let's kick this into a different gear and move on maybe to our favorite coaches. Throughout all the sports, because obviously, I think we've all had one. We could probably all agree on one guy, at least in this city, from a baseball perspective, that we loved in Charlie Manuel. Just everything about him. Now, obviously, winning the World Series helped, but his fire and his passion. I used to love seeing him go face to face with umpires out there, getting in umpires' faces. It was great to see him get fired up in that direction. So, let's move on to that conversation a little bit. Our favorite coaches in all the sports. Tommy, you want to start off with it? I want to see. I think, Tommy, you're going to have some fun names. I want to see what's on your list.
Adam, they haven't confirmed that yet on doubleheaders or how they would go about that, or if it's a condensed season or what their deal or what they're doing.
Yeah, we're kind of just speculating at this point with just everything that's kind of been talked about. What probably is the most realistic thing to happen. Well, I could see it happening, though. I could see them going doubleheaders on Sunday afternoons or something like that, certain Sunday afternoons.
It's back. Yeah, I could see that. In terms of coaching, growing up, obviously, my favorite was easily Buddy Ryan growing up. I mean, how could you not? The bravado, just everything about him. I mean,
he had the attitude.
The attitude came in. The defense fed off of his attitude, and obviously, offensively, never got to where we wanted to get to. But in terms of all that, I mean, that was my first love.
Yeah.
Now, second in terms of football, obviously was Andy Reid. I loved Andy, loved him. So. I look at them too as my two football guys that made me not fall in love with the game, but guys that here I loved. And then, sticking with inside the city of Philadelphia, Charlie Manuel, guy I love just in terms of just the hitting side, and then obviously helps us bring a championship here to Philadelphia, makes it easy to love. Basketball wise, it's tough because in my time, I want to say a bunch of great ones outside of Larry Brown, really, in my opinion, that I enjoyed here in Philadelphia, and then hockey. Hockey. There's so many great names that are good names that came through here that you could like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I look at our head coach right now, and it's like, what? This is the guy. This is the guy I can fall in love with. You know what I mean? Because the bravado again. You know what I mean? The toughness. So. I look at sports now. Gonna love Joe Girardi. Was really looking forward to falling in love with him, and obviously not going to get the opportunity. I didn't get the opportunity to yet. So, hopefully, with talking about that comes into it now. I'll go after you guys go. I'll talk about some guys I've liked all time, but they're my Philly guys.
Yeah, obviously for me, the Andy Reid. Basically, I only had two head coaches for the Eagles. Three if you really want to get it. Put Chip Kelly in there. But I was an Andy Reid guy. I loved Andy Reid when I was growing up. I love coaches that show emotion on the sideline, that really get invested into the game as well. I love that about coaches. For the NHL, for the Flyers, I love Peter Laviolette. Right, great guy, emotional, got into the game, didn't care what he said. Got into his players. Love that. Alvino, same thing. Same thing with him this year with the Flyers. He doesn't care what he says about his players. Well, he'll stick up for his players, but if you fuck up, he'll let you know you fucked up. And I love that about coaches. For the NBA, Phil Jackson, but I was 3 or 4, right? 3 or 4. But I love for the NBA. Let's see. I'll have to come back on the NBA for that one. And for them will be obviously Charlie Manuel, right? I love Charlie. He's still one of the best head managers in Phillies baseball. Nobody will ever top Charlie Manuel for that great run he had when he was here, when he was the manager. Amazing. Love Charlie. Wish he was back. I would take him right now. Not over Girardi, but if you want to be on the coaching staff, Charlie, go right ahead.
I don't need Charlie on my coaching staff at 80.
No,
I like Charlie hanging around. Let him hang around the players in spring training and teach hitting to all these young guys. That's cool. Yeah. But at 80 years old, I mean, dude, I don't need you having a heart attack in the dugout on me. Jeez. Hey, just go relax up in the press box or something somewhere. Holy shit. The Buddy Ryan name, Tom. What's interesting about that is I've got an older brother your age, and you know that's the name that he always talks about. You know, when he talks about his love for Eagles football. You know, when he was a young kid, the same thing as you. Buddy Ryan was that guy. Here, when I was a little kid, my dad, my older brother, that was the name that was always talked about. You know, as far as like, you know, the biggest badass as far as coaches go in Eagles history. They love that guy. I unfortunately, you know, obviously never got to see him coach the Eagles. A little bit too young to ever get to see him coach. But I've heard all of the stories, you know, from people in my family about how great that era. You know, of Eagles football was to watch. Obviously, you look at the players on those teams, you know, and the Hall of Famers, Reggie White, and those defenses. It was great, amazing.
And then,
you know,
offensively with Randall, it was exciting. But defensively,
Randall's a guy I would have loved to have been able to see in his prime with Philly.
Yeah, you know, well, I think everybody that's seen him in his prime would have loved to see him a little bit more too.
The year he tore his ACL, I mean, that's the year. I remember my older brother just being absolutely. He still talks about it to this day. How it just ripped his heart out. Randall tearing his ACL that early in the year with all the Super Bowl expectations and everything that was going into that year, and Randall tearing his ACL that early, it just ripped everybody's heart out.
Well, it felt like almost every year, you know, we would get off to a 4-0 start, and then he would get hurt. I mean, it almost felt like it was like constant. Wasn't probably as much as it felt like, but. I mean, honestly, that's how it felt like for a while. Every year.
Yeah, like, there was like a 5-year run there. I mean, with those defenses, you felt like Super Bowl favorites every year. There was no reason like the Super Bowl was had to be the expectation, and anything short of that wasn't going to be good enough. So I can imagine as a fan during that time period how frustrating it had to have been every single year to see something crazy like that go down. But Buddy Ryan's, I think a great name. The name I hear from people a little bit older than me, the generation before me, as a name that I hear everybody talking about, making them fall in love with Eagles football. I've got a lot of names, though, not just Philly guys, but like all over sports.
That's the thing, Zach. Like, how could you not fall in love with Buddy? You know, he's everything that, like, you know, he embodied Philadelphia in a way in terms of that, like, just the straight toughness. Made it easy.
And I think part of it, you know, obviously what everybody loved about Buddy is why I liked Rex Ryan so much. And Rex Ryan's a guy that, like, you compare them as head coaches. Buddy Ryan was, you know, such a better track record, obviously, as a head coach. But Rex Ryan, one of the most entertaining motherfuckers I think I've ever seen coach a sports team in any sport, any level. The shit he used to say in interviews.
He didn't care what he said about anybody.
I love that guy.
And I love
Rex Ryan, one of my favorite Rex Ryan quotes ever was he was talking about Tom Brady being married to a supermodel. And he had the Jets like they're like catalog, they're like, you know, clothing catalog. And he showed a picture where his wife was modeling something in this clothing catalog. And he's like, Tom Brady's married to a supermodel. I am too. And it's like shit like that with Rex. Just used to make me roll on the floor. I was like, I love this guy. You can coach my football team any day, dude. Come on, you're fucking awesome. Larry Bowa was a guy I loved growing up. I just loved Larry's passion and fire. You know, you thought Larry was going to punch an umpire in the face every time he went out there to argue with somebody. He's ready to choke one of these guys. I used to love Larry. Probably the first Phillies manager that, like, I really was like, that's my guy. I love that guy. And Charlie obviously became an easy transition right after that. Lou Piniella was a guy outside of Philly sports that I used to love as a little kid for his antics.
Yeah.
You know, again, arguing with umpires and the shows he used to put on. He was wild. It was like Bobby Knight was a guy I still love to this day, even though he's not even coaching. How could you not love Bobby Knight throwing chairs across the court and shit like that?
Yeah.
You know, choking players, punching players in the face. You know, Bobby Knight's the man. He was a badass. And my neighbor actually told me a story once I moved down here that he's from Indiana and he said he was actually at the game in the front row when Bobby Knight threw the chair across the floor.
Was he?
Yeah, he said he was in the arena at the game, and he was there when it happened. It's such a cool, awesome story to hear from somebody that was there firsthand. But yeah, those guys for me, I think like defined my childhood. Like, you know, as a sports fan, I love coaches that were fiery like that. If you had that fire,
I love coaches like
I
that.
loved you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you had fire, I could deal with the rest, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. If you make me want to run through a brick wall for you, I'll deal with everything else. I'll deal with the rest of it.
Completely.
Terry Francona.
And that's the thing. Bo is a great name, Zach, because I don't forget about Larry Bo coaching here, but in my list, you know what I mean? Maybe I semi did. You know what I mean? So on my list, maybe I semi did because there wasn't success. But in terms of loving Larry, you know what I mean? I freaking love myself.
Yeah. And that's why I say, I'm not necessarily worried about how successful a guy was, because that's not what defines, how much you might love somebody. There could be things about the guy's personality is the reason that you love him. I'm not necessarily worried about success, just as much as I'm just worried about, an overall, just love of a guy for whatever reason it might be. He didn't have to be a good head coach, but he could be entertaining, and that's the reason you like him.
Exactly.
I saw Eric Jacinto said Terry Francona. Yeah, I like Terry. As far as baseball goes, he's probably, like, in the game right now, he's probably one of my favorite managers. Like, I would take him to lead my team any day of the week. But when he was here, obviously, his tenure here in Philly and he was a young manager without a ton of talent, that 99 year, the first half of 99, I remember being a little kid and was really into that year. We were a good team at the All-Star break that year. We were right there with the Braves, and then everything fell apart by like the middle of August. But Terry didn't necessarily do enough here, I guess, and didn't necessarily have like a fiery personality or anything like that. Like, there wasn't anything about him at that time that made me fall in love with him. He didn't win enough for me to fall in love with him. And then, like, it wasn't like he was the guy that was out there in umpires' faces, yelling at guys and getting fired up with veins bulging out of his neck. So maybe that's just why I never fell in love with him at that time. I love him a lot now as a manager. Got a ton of respect for what he's done since then, and think he's one of the best managers in baseball.
Yeah, now it's it's different. Now it's changed.
Yeah,
but back then, I would have a different opinion.
Adam Rush says Coach K for Duke. Oh man, I hate Coach K. I'm the opposite. I can't stand Coach K from Duke. I don't know about you guys, but am I in the minority there? Am I just a hater? Because I can't stand Coach K.
I want to say I can't stand him. It just doesn't. I don't care enough. You know what I mean?
Like, no, he doesn't do anything for you.
No, I don't care enough.
Urban Meyer, there's a good Dean Smith, Roy Williams, Urban Meyer. There's a good names, Eric. Urban Meyer. I like Urban Meyer's passion and his intensity.
Yeah.
When I see clips of Urban Meyer and the way he talks to his players and the way he addresses his team, I like that about that guy. I think he's phenomenal in that sense. I think he's a little bit of a
and he's a winner everywhere he's been, from Utah to Florida to Ohio.